Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, March 8th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-gyan. Before we get started, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. South Korea and the U.S. have finally reached an agreement on cost sharing for American troops stationed on the Korean peninsula. Details have yet to be made public, but according to the Wall Street Journal, the new deal will run through 2025 and see South Korea up its contribution. South Korea reported 346 new COVID-19 cases Monday, inching slightly down due to fewer tests over the weekend. Meanwhile, vaccination continues across the nation, with more than 30,000 people having been inoculated. And Myanmar's military has been carrying out overnight raids, arresting people and even torturing them. A ward chairman from Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy Party was also found dead in a military hospital on Sunday after being arrested in the overnight raid. Our top story today: after a painfully drawn-out affair, South Korea and the U.S. have finally reached an agreement on cost sharing for American troops stationed on the Korean peninsula. Our Han Sung-woo has more on what the Korean Foreign Ministry has described as a deal in principle.
Less than 50 days into the Biden presidency, South Korea and the U.S. have agreed to a new defense cost-sharing deal that will run through 2025. Details on the special measures agreement have yet to be made public, and the agreement still has to be approved by Korea's National Assembly, but it will see a meaningful increase in contributions from South Korea, according to a U.S. State Department spokesperson. The breakthrough came in Washington on Sunday local time during face-to-face talks led by Korea's chief negotiator Jung Eun-bo and his American counterpart Donna Welton. South Korea's foreign ministry, in a press release, said it hopes the deal will contribute to a stronger alliance, which it described as crucial to peace on the peninsula and Northeast Asia as a whole. Likewise, the U.S. State Department said it is pleased that negotiators have, quote, reached consensus on a proposed text. The Wall Street Journal reports that the agreement between Seoul and Washington comes as the U.S. reached a parallel accord on burden sharing with Japan last month. The twin diplomatic moves are part of the Biden administration's broader plan to solidify ties with its key allies. An official announcement may be made when U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin visit South Korea later this month. Last year, South Korea offered to increase its share of costs by 13%, but failed to reach a final deal due to the Trump administration's firm adherence to a much steeper hike. The latest round of meetings was the 9th since the last deal expired in 2019. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United States kicked off their springtime military exercise on Monday, mostly scaled back this time due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Due to end next Thursday, the joint drill will not include outdoor maneuvers, but rather has been shifted to computer-simulated exercises. As a result, a final operation capability test will not be included in the drills, but partial training and theater operations under the command of a South Korean general will be in place. All trainings will be conducted under strict virus prevention measures. The number of troops and equipment have been minimized too, and restrictions on soldiers from both countries gathering at once have been implemented. Soldiers will also have to wear masks, disinfect their hands, and are restricted from taking leave during exercises. Now, on the COVID-19 situation here in South Korea, the country reported 346 new cases on Monday, inching slightly lower as fewer tests are conducted over the weekend. Of the new cases, 335 were locally transmitted and 11 were from overseas. As for the vaccination campaign, more than 2,000 people got their first dose on Sunday, raising the total number of jabs given so far to over 316,000. There have been 3,915 reports of side effects, most of them mild symptoms, and the number of people who've died after getting their first dose has risen to 11, but no link has been proven yet. America's top infectious disease specialist has warned state governors not to turn the switch on and off by lifting coronavirus restrictions too quickly. Dr. Anthony Fauci, chief medical advisor to President Biden on Sunday, warned that authorities should be careful of another surge in the number of new infections as the nation is, quote, plateauing at quite a high level. This comes as several states lifted mandatory mask wearing and eased distancing restrictions in public places. Fauci urged state officials to wait for further guidance from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, stressing the need for a gradual pullback as more people get vaccinated. He also said guidelines for how vaccinated people should interact with unvaccinated people will be announced in the next couple of days. The monthly average number of overseas tourists visiting South Korea has plunged below 10,000 due to the pandemic. According to data released by the Korea Tourism Organization, an average of 9,700 international tourists visited the country from April to December 2020. This is not even 1% of the roughly 1 million tally January last year. The State Tourism Office expects more tourists will visit as Seoul is mulling over introducing the so-called travel bubble, which exempts inbound travelers from mandatory quarantine if they submit negative COVID-19 test results. Now turning to our economic calendar for the week, ahead at home and abroad, South Korea's finance ministry is set to announce its financial status, including income and expenditure. The Bank of Korea will release financial market trends for February, and the OECD gets ready to publish its interim economic outlook report. Our Seoul gives us a rundown.
On Tuesday, the Ministry of Economy and Finance will present its monthly public finance report. According to its latest report, last year's tax revenue, based on preliminary data, fell 3% from 2019. A decline in corporate tax earnings due to the pandemic contributed to the fall. It marked the first time that the country recorded a drop in tax revenue for 2 straight years. Gross expenditure in the January to November period last year came to $443 billion, up 14% on year. On the same day, the OECD will present its interim economic outlook. In its report, published last December, the OECD's projected economic growth forecast for Korea was 2.8% for 2021 and 3.4% for next year. According to its prediction, the global economy would grow by 4.2% this year, followed by 3.7% in 2022. On Wednesday, the Bank of Korea will release the financial market trends for February 2021. According to last month's report, household loans from banks increased to near $880 billion, up around $6.5 billion. This is the largest increase as of January since the relevant data started being compiled in 2004. Home mortgage lending accounted for the highest proportion of total household borrowings. Korea's soaring housing market was said to be the main cause of the rise. 서은경, Arirang News.
The growth rate of food prices in Korea now ranks in 4th place among OECD member countries. According to the OECD and statistics of Korea today, the price of food and non-alcoholic beverages rose by 6.5% in January compared to the same period last year. The figure was more than twice the OECD average of 3.1%. Turkey, Chile, and Iceland ranked ahead of Korea. Food price inflation in the country got even worse in February. The figure hit 9.7%, the highest in almost 10 years. As the violent crackdown by Myanmar's military continues on thousands of people who gather peacefully to demand democracy, the country's security forces are going house to house to make arrests, targeting those who organize or support the protests. Our Kim Hyo-sun has more.
Amid the continued violent crackdown on anti-coup protesters in Myanmar, the country's military has been carrying out overnight raids, arresting people and even torturing them. Security forces have reportedly arrested at least 3 people on charges of organizing and supporting the protest movement in Myanmar's largest city, Yangon. According to local media, a ward chairman from Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy party was also found dead in a military hospital on Sunday after being arrested in the overnight raid. The Assistance Association for Political Prisoners Advocacy Group says more than 1,700 people had been detained as of Saturday. As people continue to take to the streets regardless, the military has also started using grenades and tear gas to disperse them. as thousands of people gathered to peacefully demand the resignation of the military government and a return to democracy in the country's second biggest city of Mandalay on Sunday. The riot police dispersed the crowds by peppering them with tear gas. The protesters, which include teachers and university students, fled immediately, with many hiding in nearby buildings. The UN said late last week that security forces in Myanmar have killed more than 50 people, but noted the exact death toll could even be higher. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Pope Francis wrapped up the last day of his first ever papal visit to Iraq by visiting northern cities severely damaged by Islamic State. The Pope urged Christians to forgive and to restore and rebuild what was damaged in the traditionally Christian region. Our Choi Min-jung reports.
Pope Francis visited northern Iraq on Sunday to encourage Christian communities who were victimized during the war with the Islamic State. Towns in the northern region, which were traditionally Christian, were attacked by Muslim extremists in 2014, and Christians were forced to flee their homes until the region was liberated in 2017. Against this backdrop, the Pope arrived in Baghdad on Friday for the first ever papal visit to the country. On his last day, he visited the city of Mosul, where thousands of civilians were killed and churches destroyed in the extremist attacks. Standing in a church packed with people, the Pope urged Christians to forgive, but also encouraged them not to give up.
The road to a full recovery may still be long, but I ask you please not to grow discouraged. What is needed is the ability to forgive, but also the courage not to give up.
Francis also pointed out the importance of rebuilding and restoring Christianity in the region, as many Christians still have not yet returned to their homes. Around 1.5 million Christians were in Iraq in 2003, but the number has dropped dramatically to under 400,000. Pope Francis ended his day in a stadium at Erbil, celebrating a mass with a massive crowd of some 10,000 people in attendance. Saturday was also a historic day as he met with Iraq's top Shiite Muslim cleric, who agreed that Iraqi Christians should be able to live in peace. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
For the first time in history, K-pop sensations BTS have earned a nomination for the Grammy Awards. They'll compete in the Best Pop Duo Group Performance for their 2020 smash hit single, Dynamite. The nomination also comes as Billboard named them 2020's Greatest Pop Stars. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
It's the one award BTS is still missing, a Grammy. But now, BTS has become the first South Korean artist to be nominated for a Grammy after being shortlisted in the category of Best Pop Duo Group Performance for their 2020 single, Dynamite. Although it's not their first appearance at the Grammy, having performed at last year's show, it's the first time they will be a part of music's biggest night as award hopefuls. BTS will also be among a slew of top artists who will perform at next Sunday's 63rd Grammy Awards. Last year, BTS performed live with Lil Nas X and others singing Old Town Road, but this time, BTS will have the stage to themselves. Other stars set to take the stage include Taylor Swift, Harry Styles, Post Malone, and more. The Grammy nomination also comes as Billboard recently named BTS the greatest pop stars of 2020. According to Billboard, while many artists have struggled during the pandemic, BTS dominated the live stream and virtual space, including their widely successful Bang Bang Con virtual concert. As Billboard pointed out, BTS helped many realize there are many potential pop classics that could have been missed, simply because of the language barrier. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Cherry blossoms mark the arrival of spring here in South Korea, and it seems they'll be blooming earlier than normal this year. In Seoul, it's forecast to happen in the beginning of April with full bloom by the 9th. Our Lee Eun-jin tells us more.
Snow-white cherry blossoms that bloom like snowflakes are the symbol of spring in Korea. Like other spring flowers, such as the forsythia and azalea, we can expect to see cherry blossoms earlier than usual. This is due to forecasts that March will be rather warm, and it's the temperature that affects the blooming of the cherry blossoms the most.
The migratory anticyclone will likely bring us warmer days, so we forecast the cherry blossoms to bloom 3 to 5 days earlier this year.
The bloom is expected to start on Jeju Island on March 20th and make its way up to the southern regions between March 24th and 29th, and the central regions between March 30th and April 5th. In Seoul, the cherry blossom should appear on April 3rd along Yunjungro, a stretch of road near the National Assembly in Yeouido. Roughly a week after their first bloom, cherry blossoms hit their peak bloom, which is expected to be within the first 10 days of April across the country. 이은진, Arirang News.
Good morning. We'll have typical early spring weather today. A chilly start turns mild by the afternoon. So there will be wide temperature gaps of more than 10 degrees Celsius across the country. Well, that is 4 to 5 degrees higher than the season norms by the afternoon. But those in West will need a face mask that can block fine dust. The Jeollado provinces woke up to high levels of fine dust. In Chungcheongdo and the capital region will see worsening air quality as the day goes on today. So highs will be in the low to mid-teens across the country, and Seoul, Busan, and Jeju will make it to 13 degrees Celsius this afternoon, and mostly sunny skies to feature for most parts. Now, wide gaps in the readings to continue this week under mostly to partly sunny skies in the capital region, while southern provinces and Jeju will see another round of rain at the end of the week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that will do it for us at the hour on Arirang News. We'll be back with more of the day's headlines at noon Korea time, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.